Hi everyone, welcome to my channel International Storyteller. In this channel you will find true horror stories worldwide. These stories are for entertainment purpose only. In this video, I will tell you the story of one of the most haunted houses in America. This house is still situated in the small town of Amityville, roughly 30 miles outside of New York City. People called this house the Amityville Horror House. This house is one of the most famous and well-documented hauntings in the history of United States of America. The Amityville Horror House's original name was known as 112 Ocean Avenue. This house was built in the year 1925 at 108 Ocean Drive in Amityville, New York. At that time, this house was known as the Dutch Colonial House. This haunted house might have a different name, but people call it the Amityville Horror House because it is the most haunted house in Amityville town. It has a total of 5 bedrooms with 3,600 square feet of living space, and the house windows open up to beautiful views of the Amityville River. Until 1974, the house was occupied by the Deo family. The eldest son of the family was named Ronald Jr. Deo. He shot and killed 6 members of his family, leaving the house empty for 1 year. A year later, in 1975, a new family member, George and Kathy Lutz, brought their 3 children and moved into the house. But the new family stayed there for a short period of time because they claimed to have experienced extreme hauntings. So they fled the house after 28 days, claiming the house was haunted. After this incident, the story of paranormal hauntings in this house was first inspired by a book called The Amityville Horror. Later, the Amityville horror film, which is based on a well-documented story of paranormal hauntings, was released in 1979. This led to instantly became very popular of the Amityville Horror House. And this was not just a ghost story movie, it was considered to be a true ghost story movie. But how true is it? Just what actually happened in that house? In order to know this, let us hear the real story of Amityville's haunted house. In December of 1975, the George and Kathy Lutz family moved into the 112 Ocean Avenue house situated in Amityville town. After that time, the story of the Amityville Horror House supposedly came in. Before that time, nobody knew if the house was really haunted or not. George and Kathy were made aware of the murders of the previous Deo family living in that house. But still, George and Kathy Lutz bought the house because they believed their purchase of the 4,000 square foot house at $80,000 was extremely cheap. The 4,000 square foot house also has a boathouse, heated swimming pool, garage, and full basement. George and Kathy Lutz thought they could really enjoy their lives in their new house for a long time. They followed the advice of a friend and had the house cleansed by a priest before moving in, but as it turned out, that didn't help much. The day they moved, the couple had a priest bless the house. But George claimed the holy man felt an unseen hand slap him in the sewing room and heard a voice saying, "Get out." The couple claimed that soon after they moved into the Amityville house, strange things started happening, and they got increasingly creepier as the days went by. The couple began noticing odd things around the house, such as the doors and windows moving automatically on their own, and slippery liquid substances dripping from the ceilings. After that, George Lutz started hearing voices, random knocking noises, doors would allegedly slam on their own, and other creepy stuff like that in the middle of the night. Additionally, they start seeing eyes appearing and looking in from outside the house. They also start smelling weird and foul odors in the house. George Lutz would mysteriously wake up at 3:15 a.m. every night, which was supposedly the time that previously Deo family elder son, Ronald Jr., carried out his murders. George's wife, Kathy Lutz, also discovered a secret room that wasn't in the original house plans, and that this room was painted red. Later, they came to know that the painted red in that secret room was actually blood. One night, George Lutz heard his children's beds slamming up and down on the floor, but he couldn't do anything because an invisible force was paralyzing him. Such terrifying incidents allegedly forced them to flee from their house. Just 28 days after they moved to Amityville, the Lutz family fled the house as fast as possible, leaving all their belongings behind, including clothes in their closets and food in the fridge. That night, when they fled from their house, whatever dark forces were in the house followed them. George and Kathy never went into detail about what happened and never even came back to get any of their things. They were so freaked out that they left the town of Amityville and moved all the way out to the state of California. A few days later, people living in the town of Amityville came to know that George and his family had left the house without telling anyone. However, the George family didn't exactly leave the house quietly. While George was staying at the Amityville house, he told other people living in Amityville town about the strange and scary things that were happening in their house. So people start to believe that the reason George's family left the house was because of the hauntings in the house. 2 months later, ghost hunters and paranormal experts came into the house to check whether it was haunted or not. Some crew members also joined them to take videos of the work of ghost hunters inside that house. They published the video footage on a local TV channel. As a result of this, the story of Amityville Horror House became very popular in America. Things looked pretty serious when paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved. On March 6, 1976, the ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren returned to the Amityville house to investigate, along with a team of paranormal experts and reporters. While they were trying to communicate with the spirit living inside the house, one person became ill and left the room, and another person experienced symptoms of a heart attack. The next day, Ed and Lorraine Warren held another session to communicate with the spirit at around 3:15 a.m. This is because 3 a.m. is known as the devil's hour, and demonic activities are highest at around 3 a.m. in the early morning before sunrise. It is also said that 3 a.m. is the time when the most rituals and sacrifices take place. This time, Ed and Lorraine Warren perform the demonic activities in an upstairs room inside the house. According to Lorraine Warren, the demonic force inside the upstairs room was very strong. Lorraine claimed that such a terrible entity inside the house seemed to come from the deepest inner parts of the earth. The team took several photos inside the house. But one image shows a ghost boy staring out from one of the bedrooms. This gives evidence of a ghost being present inside the house. The photo was taken inside the Amityville house in 1976. It has become one of the most famous paranormal photos of all time. It features what appears to be a young boy with white eyes who is looking out of a doorway. The image was supposedly captured by Gene Campbell, a professional photographer who was part of the team that worked with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Gene Campbell had set up an automatic camera that took infrared pictures to capture the second-floor landing during the night. Equipped with black and white film, his camera captured this Amityville ghost boy photo that some have speculated could be the ghost of the murdered child, John DeFeo, who had lived in the house with his family prior to the George Lutz's family. After this incident, people start to believe that the murder of entire DeFeo family members by their eldest son, Ronald Jr., in the Amityville horror house might be the work of demonic presence in the house. In order to know who actually killed the DeFeo family members, let us continue hearing the story of the Amityville haunted house. Amityville Horror House's original owner was a couple named John and Catherine Moynihan. They started building their dream home here in 1925, and they lived in the house happily for many years. Then, in 1965, their descendants sold the home to the DeFeo's family, a seemingly happy and well-off family with Italian roots who left Brooklyn for Long Island in New York City. This is when things started to fall apart for the Amityville house. The DeFeo family had 7 members. They are Ronald DeFeo, his wife Louise, and their children, 23-year-old Ronald Jr., 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 9-year-old John Matthew. At 3:15 a.m. on the night of November 13, 1974, the eldest son, Ronald Jr., grabbed a .35 caliber rifle and killed his entire family while they were asleep. He shot each family member point blank. He even had the time to shower and get rid of his blood-stained clothes before going to work. He arrived at a bar in the town and started shouting that someone had broken into his house and killed his family. After that, he called the police. The police came to his house and found all 6 family members dead in their beds. All of the victims were found shot with a rifle and face down in their beds. There was no sign of struggle or drugging to them before they were dead. No local people heard the gunshots inside the house except Deo dog barking away. Ronald Jr. claimed that he knew who killed his entire family members. So he told the police that the killer was a hitman. A hitman is someone who gets paid to kill. The police could not understand and didn't buy the story told by Ronald Jr. So the police proceeded to interview Ronald Jr. The interview resulted in numerous inconsistencies, and it quickly became apparent that Ronald Jr. was the prime suspect in the murder of his entire family. He first denied killing them, blaming it on a mob hitman. But on the next day, Ronald Jr. admitted he had killed all his family members. He stood trial in court on October 14, 1975, and eventually confessed that he killed his own family using a .35 caliber rifle. However, when Ronald Jr. went to trial, he changed his story all the time. Ronald Jr. said that he couldn't stop killing his family. He claimed that he was guided by evil demonic voices in his head. These evil demonic voices control his behavior, forcing him to kill his entire family. His lawyers claimed that Ronald Jr. had mental illness, stating that it was not his intention to kill his family, but an evil demonic voices urged him to kill his entire family members. After hearing the story of Ronald Jr. hearing demonic voices, people began to believe that the Amityville house itself was haunted and that the Ronald Jr. Deo family as a whole were victims of the house. But the jury of the court didn't find Ronald Jr.'s story believable, and he was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life. Some say that he had been possessed by a demon. The most puzzling story of all was that he was guided by demonic voices and that the house told him to do it. While the case may seem simple, but there are some unsettling questions remained. For example, all the family members were found face down on their beds in separate rooms, with gunshot wounds to the back. This suggests that they had all been killed in their sleep. How Ronald Jr. managed to shoot them all with a loud rifle and not disturb anyone from their sleep in the process is still a mystery. It is hard to believe that no one woke up after hearing the gunshots and they were not drugged. The police said the way that the dead bodies lay on the bed gave the impression of them being held down, not from above but from below, which is impossible. Not only this, but neighbors didn't hear anything either. This could be explained by the fact that it was a stormy night, but police said that the gunshots would have been heard over the storm, which they weren't. No one can be sure exactly how Ronald Jr. killed his family, as he changes the story so often that those monitoring him still doubt whether he was telling the truth or not. The facts still remain that he killed his family, and there were some unusual factors involved. The full story of the Amityville house will likely never be known because Ronald Jr. Deo kept changing details of events over the years, depending on who he talked to, and he died on March 12, 2021.